Today we're going to rewind more unforgettable sounds of the 80s as we count down the top cover songs of a decade full of them. From unexpected twists on classics to fresh takes that outshone the originals. These songs left an indelible mark on the music world, including one where a girl band transformed a folk song into a driving rocker, and another where the wailing banshee from rock's heaviest band of the 70s had a smash hit by crooning a 50s tune. To this day, most people have no clue it's him. And another that became one of the funniest misheard lyrics of the decade. And yet another that's first Spanish song to hit #1 in the rock era. We break down the stories behind these iconic covers, the magic they brought to the table, and how they became monster hits in their own right. The countdown's coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. Today's gonna be fun. You know, if you remember this commercial,
grab a stick of juicy fruit, the taste is gonna move ya.
You're gonna dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now, click the white button and click the notification bell so you know when our stuff comes out. Also, go to ProfessorRock.com. We got some cool live streams coming up, special guests, and other exclusives. Check it out. You're going to have a blast with this countdown of the top 6 covers of the 80s, even though one of the songs on the list is related to one of the saddest days of the rock era. Keep in mind, the 6 covers that I've chosen are remakes of hit originals. In other words, the first version and the cover had to make the top 40 on the Billboard Hot 100 to qualify for the countdown, or be truly famous before the song became a hit. So we got something to compare it to. All right, let's go. Coming in at #6 on the countdown is the Bengals reimagining of a Simon and Garfunkel tune. The song, Hazy Shade of Winter.
And the sky is a hazy shade of winter. And the sky is a hazy shade of winter.
Paul Simon composed A Hazy Shade of Winter as a poetic reflection on the passage of time and the shifting seasons of life. The song captures the transition from fall to winter, both in nature and in the human experience. Really a metaphor for the inevitable changes and challenges that we all face and that they faced back in the 60s. Its lyrics weave together themes of searching, longing, and the haunting realization that time is slipping away. Now with each verse, Paul Simon explores the yearning for meaning and connection and the quiet urgency that comes with recognizing life's truly fleeting moments. Love the imagery in the lyrics of this song. You know, the imagery of barren branches and fading leaves. It really paints a vivid picture of life cycles, serving as a poignant reminder to cherish the present, even as we search for what's next.
And look around, he's a brown now.
Now, in 1987, the Bengals put out their own version, a spin on the classic. They recorded the cover for the soundtrack of Less Than Zero. Do you remember that movie? It had Andrew McCarthy, Jamie Gertz, and Robert Downey Jr., one of his first.
Check me out. I'm going to make a serious comeback.
Great! Less Than Zero.
Their version with its gritty guitars and driving beats soared up the charts, reaching #2. That was a significant leap from what Simon and Garfunkel did. They hit #13 when they put out their version. This next part is really funny. Before the opportunity to do their version for the movie Less Than Zero, the Bengals had already connected with Simon and Garfunkel's original. In fact, by 1983, the band had made this song a staple in their set list. It electrified audiences with their raw, energetic take on the folk classic. A lot of people thought it was an original, including Susanna Hoffs. Just kidding.
I was so hard to please. Look around.
Actually, Susanna Hoffs, when she heard it, the connection was immediate. She said, and I quote, "I was alone in this dark room, just the radio and me, and A Hazy Shade of Winter came on, and it hit me like a bolt of lightning. I thought I was a Simon and Garfunkel super fan, but somehow I'd missed this badass folk rock song of theirs. When she heard it, the revelation couldn't wait. She said that she ran to band rehearsal that very night, and she said to the band, 'We got to cover this song.' And from that moment on, A Hazy Shade of Winter became a signature part of the Bengals' live repertoire. Its infectious energy weaves seamlessly into their sound, and it just captivated their fans for years to come. I love this song. I love how they covered it. When director Marek Kaniewska set out to create Less Than Zero, a film loosely inspired by Bret Easton Ellis's 1985 novel, he needed the perfect soundtrack to capture its edgy vibe. And that's where the Bengals came in. The band was approached to contribute a track, and before they knew it, they were in the studio with legendary producer Rick Rubin. A lot of people don't know Rick Rubin did this song, and they reimagined Simon and Garfunkel's song with a bold, rock-driven intensity that would leave its mark on the film and on the charts alike. What do you think? I think it's better than Simon and Garfunkel. That's pretty tough to do. Okay, at number 5 on the countdown of the top 5 covers of the 80s, top 6, it's the soulful remake of Every Time You Go Away by Paul Young. Love this song.
Every time you go away, every time you go away.
Every Time You Go Away was penned by Daryl Hall and first recorded in 1980 by Daryl Hall and John Oates. It wasn't released as a single. The song did find its way into the hearts of fans and musicians alike, though. Years later, Paul Young turned it into a global pop hit, bringing the track to a new wave of recognition. Here's what Paul Young told me about the song. What are you saying there? I've always wondered because we didn't have the lyrics, the take it, or,
That's exactly what I'm
that's
saying.
what I thought you were saying.
Because he's played the riff once and I'm saying do it again. It was something that I did on one of the first vocal takes and they really liked it, so they left it in.
And it's funny because as a kid, when I first heard it, I'm like, this is a great song, but why is he saying every time you go away, you take a piece of meat with you?
You take a piece of me with you.
Yeah.
Because you mishear songs like,
Yeah.
that happens all the time, like, excuse me while I kiss this guy instead of
Yeah.
kiss the sky, that kind of
There's a
thing.
book of misquotes, like,
I know.
like a coffee table.
It was such a great song and harken back to emotional vocal too. I mean, you really you tapped into something there that was tremendous.
We've got everything going on.
Do you remember what you were thinking when you recorded the vocal? Because it's just a little bit different than anything you'd recorded.
Yeah, I was just putting myself into it like an actor would when he's got a part to play. So I'm putting myself in the role of feeling that sort of pain every time someone goes away. And there's always that little hint of, they're going away, what if they meet somebody else? And all those kind of things, that slight little worries that you have, when a partner goes off and you're not there.
A piece of me with you.
All in all, it became one of the most famous misheard lyrics ever. I mean, everybody was wondering why every time the narrator's lover went away, she took a piece of meat with her. Sounds like an adult film.
Take a piece of me with you.
It soared to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 2 weeks after Live Aid, and it also hit number 1 on the AC chart, and it won Video of the Year at the 1986 Brit Awards with a lot of competition. And I love how they used it in the last scene of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. All right, back to the countdown. At number 4 is a song that was released in the 1950s. It became a hit in the 60s, and then it was a huge cover hit in the 80s by the frontman of the Golden Gods of Rock from the 70s. It's Sea of Love by the Robert Plant-fronted group, the Honey Drippers.
The sea of love. To the sea of love.
Now, Sea of Love is a timeless ballad written by John Philip Baptiste, better known as Phil Phillips, and George Corey also helped write it. The song marked Phil's sole venture into the top 40, and he never recorded another hit. At the time, Phil was working as a bellboy in Lake Charles, Louisiana, when he penned the song as a heartfelt tribute to a love interest. Now, little did he know that his romantic inspiration would lead to a track that would endure for generations. The story of Sea of Love took a dramatic turn when a gas meter reader, no joke, he overheard John Philip Baptiste practicing the song. This man was blown away by what he heard, so he actually went in and suggested Philip visit record producer George Corey, who he knew.
Much I love you.
Corey not only helped him record the track, but also convinced him to adopt the stage name Phil Phillips. Released on Corey's independent label, the song became a local sensation in Louisiana, catching the attention of Mercury Records. They took it nationwide, and it became a massive hit. But success didn't come with a big payday. This is kind of interesting. Phillips claimed he only earned $6,800 from the song overall, and to top it off, he didn't even win over the girl who inspired it. Still, he had no regrets. He actually would say that he married the right one. That's pretty cool. So here's a fun tidbit about the original recording of Sea of Love. The beautiful harmony vocals that made the song so memorable, they weren't performed by seasoned professionals at all. They were performed by a group of friends that Phil Phillips brought into the studio. None of them had any formal experience, so Phillips had to teach them the parts himself, and they had to do it in a hurry because they had no money. So it's a testament to the raw, heartfelt charm that makes this song so special. It's really cool. It was certainly that kind of charm that attracted Robert Plant to the song, and it was his desire to record a cover with his band, the Honey Drippers. Now, if you're not familiar with the Honey Drippers, they were an English band born in the early 80s, a passion project formed by Robert Plant in 1981 to fulfill his dream of leading a band rooted in rhythm and blues. He'd always wanted to do that. Legendary record executive Ahmet Ertegun envisioned a project that captured the vibe of the classic covers the Honey Drippers performed during their laid-back 1981 tour. He actually reached out to Robert Plant with the idea, and Plant was on board, agreeing to record a 5-song mini album under the Honey Drippers name. The result was a nostalgic tribute to the rhythm and blues roots that had long inspired Plant's musical journey before he joined Led Zeppelin, way before.
Just how much I love you.
By 1984, the group included a stellar lineup featuring Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck and released an EP titled The Honey Drippers Volume 1. Now, it was on that record that the Honey Drippers released Sea of Love. That was the A-side, and then Rockin' After Midnight was the B-side. Great single. So radio gravitated much more to Sea of Love, and this made Robert Plant really nervous because he was afraid he was going to be labeled a crooner after being a golden god of rock. Most people still have no idea that this is Robert Plant. I mean, just listen to him wailing like a rock and roll banshee on Immigrant Song, and then out crooning Tony Bennett with this one. Plant was so worried about it, after the song's success, he jumped right back into his own rock and roll work to get right back to it. Robert Plant and the Honey Drippers' rendition of Sea of Love is a heartfelt, passionate reimagining of this classic. It's really cool. Robert's vocal performance is nothing short of stunning, capturing the deep respect and affection he clearly held for the song and that genre of music. It's a beautiful homage that breathes new life into this timeless tune. So Phil Phillips' original sold to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the Billboard R&B chart in 59 into 60. And the Honey Drippers cover came very close to achieving that same success. Theirs went to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, but it did reach number 1 on the Billboard AC chart, and it went to number 1 in Canada. Pretty cool, Robert Plant the crooner. Coming in at number 3 on the countdown is an otherworldly collaboration that accidentally invented rap metal and the biggest comeback of the decade. Covered this a couple weeks ago, but I got some new stories for you here, so stay with it. Aerosmith's triumphant comeback, Walk This Way by Run DMC and Aerosmith. Walk This Way first dropped as a single from Aerosmith's Toys in the Attic from 1975. Steven Tyler wrote the lyrics, Joe Perry came up with the music. It wasn't an instant chart topper, if you remember, but by early 77, it had climbed into the top 10, becoming one of many hits that solidified the band's place in rock history during the 70s. Fast forward to the 80s, and Walk This Way got a whole new lease on life when Run DMC covered it in 1986. The team up with Aerosmith on the track, of course, was a game changer, and the idea came about while they were working on their Raising Hell album. Rick Rubin, second time we're going to mention him here, he was producing it, of course, and he pulled out Aerosmith's Toys in the Attic album and he played the song for Run DMC. And at their shows, Run DMC had been freestyling over the first few seconds of the track, looping it without ever hearing the rest of the song or even knowing the lyrics. At that time, Joseph Simmons, Run, and Daryl McDaniels, DMC, had no idea who Aerosmith even was. They weren't sold on the idea of even covering the song. They actually thought the lyrics sounded like hillbilly gibberish, their words. But Jam Master Jay was more open to it, and Rick Rubin pushed to make it happen, so they decided to remake the song with Tyler and Perry coming in to the studio to re-record their parts. Now, initially, Run DMC were going to try to mimic Tyler's vocal style, but Jam Master Jay convinced him to flow more naturally with their rap style instead. As for the bass track, the studio didn't have one, so a Beastie Boy who happened to be hanging around ran home and brought his bass for Perry to use. The result? A classic that would bridge rock and hip-hop like never before. Even after recording with Steven Tyler and Joe Perry, Run DMC didn't expect Walk This Way to be released even as a single. They were actually shocked when it started getting airplay on both urban and rock radio stations. Rick Rubin admitted, saying, "I never even thought Walk This Way would be a single. Not that I didn't like it, but I didn't think of it in those terms. But it turned out to be history-making." DMC later called it a beautiful thing, even though they didn't agree with it at first. Song went on to chart higher on the Billboard Hot 100 than the original. It peaked at number 4, became Run DMC's biggest hit, and made history as the first hip-hop single to break into the top 5. A lot of people forget that. Moving right along on our countdown of the top 6 covers of the 80s, I've got the biggest hit from the very first heavy metal album to go to number 1, right in the middle of the reign of Michael Jackson's Thriller. It's Come On Feel the Noise by Quiet Riot at number 2 here. Even Van Halen couldn't top MJ, but Quiet Riot did it. Come On Feel the Noise is a rock anthem that started as a glam rock anthem before becoming a hair metal classic. It was originally recorded by British band Slade, and the band showcased their signature style, loud anthemic energy paired with flamboyant costumes, dramatic makeup, and a stage presence that embodied the spirit of glam rock. The genre of glam rock was huge in the UK during the mid-70s, of course, and this track became one of its defining hits. Written by Slade's Jim Lee and Noddy Holder, one of the underrated singers out there, produced by Chaz Chandler, who previously had managed Jimi Hendrix, actually. The song made history when it entered the UK charts at number 1. The first song to do that since the Beatles' Get Back in '69. It became Slade's 4th UK chart topper and also hit number 1 in Ireland, solidifying its place as a glam rock classic. Most Americans don't know much about Slade and recognize Come On Feel the Noise from Quiet Riot's 1983 cover, which soared to number 5 on the charts and, like I mentioned earlier, helped this album, Metal Health, their album, make history as the first metal album to hit number 1 on the Billboard 200. Now, the idea to cover this song came from their producer, Spencer Proffer. He believed it could be a smash in the US just as it had been in the UK for Slade. He actually made the band do it if they wanted to record the album. Quiet Riot's lead singer, Kevin DuRow, he said he would rather have stuck ice picks in his eyes than do this song. Kevin was determined for the band to write every track on the album, and he wasn't a fan of Slade to begin with. Frustrated with the suggestion, the band hatched a plan to intentionally botch the recording, hoping the label would reject it. Now, much to their surprise, and maybe even their dismay, their raw, rebellious take turned into a massive hit, solidifying Quiet Riot's place in rock history. Late Quiet Riot drummer Frank Banali once shared the amusing story behind the recording of the song. He said, and I quote, "We were supposed to rehearse the song before recording it. And the producer kept calling the rehearsal studio asking, 'Are you working on Come On Feel the Noise?' We'd tell him, 'Yeah, it sounds great.' But the truth was we never even played it. When the day arrived to record the track, Banali decided to come clean. I got to the studio early and told the engineer what was going on. I said, 'You might as well record this just for laughs and giggles.'" With no real plan and no intro even worked out, tensions rose as the band argued about how to start the song. But when Banali noticed the engineer was rolling tape, he just improvised. I just started playing what became the intro. And Rudy Sarzo joined in on bass, and Carlos Cavazzo, he followed on guitar. Kevin was sitting in the corner of the studio just laughing, giggling, waiting for this massive train wreck. Problem is, the train wreck, it never happened. Instead, they captured the energy and the spontaneity that made this track undeniable. Just rock your boys, we'll get Kevin nailed the vocal because he didn't want to be the one to screw up. So the plan to botch the song actually made it a classic. I love that. Quiet Riot's version of Come On Feel the Noise skyrocketed in popularity thanks in large part to its heavily played video on MTV. I mean, at the time, pop radio was dominated by artists like Michael Jackson, The Police, and Madonna, acts far removed from the world of heavy metal or hard rock. But MTV was hungry for American rock bands to feature, and this track hit the sweet spot for him. The video was tailor-made for MTV's young male audience, featuring a teenager experiencing a chaotic metal assault in his bedroom as the band's energy bursts through the screen. Well, we're counting down the top 6 covers of the 80s, and we've arrived to the big finish. The one that I picked, it actually also came from a movie. It's all of it's in a foreign language. Every 80s kid knows every lyric of this, though, I'm telling you. My choice for the #1 cover song of the 80s is Los Lobos and their spirited rendition of Labomba. Labomba is a traditional Mexican folk song from the state of Veracruz, also known as Labomba, bomb as in B-O-M-B. It became widely popular when Richie Valens recorded his version in '58. It became a top 40 hit in the US. His rendition of the song is also ranked number 345 on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. And it's actually the only song on the list that's not sung or written in English. This song is a prime example of the Son Jarocho musical style, which blends Spanish, indigenous, Afro-Mexican, and Afro-Caribbean musical influences. Labomba likely dates back to the late 17th century, originating in 1683 during a slave uprising known as the Bombaria. Over the years, Labomba has been covered by numerous artists, with its most famous version coming from Los Lobos. Their rendition was featured as the title track of the 1987 film Labomba, a biopic about Richie Valens' life and career that did very well at the box office. Richie Valens first learned Labomba as a child from his cousin Dickie Coda. In 1958, he recorded a rock and roll version of the song with a talented group of session musicians. There was Buddy Clark on string bass, Ernie Freeman on piano. Carol Kay was on acoustic rhythm guitar. A lot of people don't know that. Renee Hall on Dan Electro 6-string baritone guitar, and Earl Palmer on drums and claves. Now, originally, Labomba was released as the B-side to Donna, which was Valens' heartfelt song about his high school sweetheart, Donna Ludwig, whom he dated until his untimely death. Richie Valens' life was tragically cut short on the day the music died, February 2nd, 1959. After performing in Clear Lake, Iowa, he boarded a small plane with Buddy Holly, JP the Big Bopper Richardson, and pilot Roger Peterson. Holly had chartered the plane, and Valens only got a seat on the flight after winning a coin toss with Holly's backup guitarist Tommy Alsop. Bob Hell, a local disc jockey, flipped the coin backstage just before the musicians headed to the airport. Valens is famously said to have remarked, "That's the first time I've ever won anything in my life." Meanwhile, Waylon Jennings, Holly's bassist, gave up his seat on the plane for Richardson, who was sick with the flu. At around 12:55 a.m. on February 3rd, the Beechcraft Bonanza took off for Fargo, North Dakota. Just minutes after the departure, the plane crashed due to pilot error. Roger Peterson was not trained for the harsh weather conditions. He lost control of the plane and it crashed. All 4 men were killed instantly. Like Buddy Holly and J.P. Richardson, Richie Valens suffered fatal head injuries and blunt force trauma. At just 17 years of age, he was the youngest victim of the crash. Richie Valens' original version of Labomba peaked at number 32 in France, number 13 in Belgium, and number 22 on the Billboard Hot 100 here. But it climbed all the way to number 1 in Canada. Now, Los Lobos, they did the song justice with a rousing rendition for the movie about Richie's life and his tragic death. Founded by high school buddies David Hidalgo on vocals and guitar and Luis Perez on drums, Los Lobos was formed in East Los Angeles back in '73. The group were big fans of Richie Valens. They wanted to pay tribute to Richie, who was a Mexican hero as the godfather of Chicano rock. So they recorded a version of Labomba even before the movie. Richie Valens' family was so moved by the band's rendition, they personally requested that Los Lobos be the one to contribute to the soundtrack for the movie. The soundtrack included 8 Los Lobos covers of Ballin's songs such as Come On, Let's Go and Ballin's iconic hit Donna. But it was the lead single Labomba that became a massive hit in 1987. Now, the song maintained the Veracruz-inspired San Jarocho's folk style of the original, but also added a contemporary touch that resonated with new generations of listeners. The Los Lobos cover of Labomba was a runaway smash. It went to #1 in 20 countries, including the UK, Zimbabwe, Spain, and here are the Billboard Hot 100. Well, there you have it. The Professor of Rock countdown of the top 6 cover songs of the 80s. So many cool covers in the 80s that bring back some great memories. What are your memories of these songs, and what are your top covers of the 80s? If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. Make sure to go to professorofrock.com to sign up for our live streams and all of our other exclusives there. Also have a spirited discussion below about the cover songs. What would you like to see next? The 70s or the 60s? Even the 90s? Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.